The rain had not stopped for 6 days. She knelt on the wet stone of the temple floor, wrists bound, dress soaked through. Above her stood a creature 3 times the height of a man. His shadow swallowed the torches. In her shaking hand, a single clay tablet, the last of 70. He looked down at her and laughed. "You think words can kill me, child?" She said nothing. She could not yet. The water was already past her ankles, and somewhere out beyond that temple, 69 other tablets had begun to hum. 7 years before that night, her name was Naamah. She was 19 years old, and she lived in the city of Enoch, in a narrow street where the smell of barley bread mixed with the smell of wet clay. Her mother had died when she was a child. Her father was a temple scribe. He raised her among tablets and reed pens and the scratch of stylus on damp earth. He should not have taught her to read. In those days, women did not touch the sacred texts. Women did not learn the cuneiform marks. But Naamah's father was tired, and Naamah was quick, and the lamps burned late, and one night he handed her a stylus and said, "Try." She tried. By 12, she could copy a hymn faster than any boy in the temple. By 16, she had memorized scripts she had only seen once. Her father called it a gift. He also called it a danger. He told her to keep her eyes down when the tax collectors came, because the tax collectors were not men. They were Nephilim, 3 cubits taller than the tallest man in Enoch, shoulders like temple beams, voices that vibrated in your chest before they reached your ears. They were the children of the Watchers, the fallen angels who had come down from the high places and taken human women as wives. Their sons walked the earth as kings. They collected grain and girls and silence. Naamah was 11 the first time she saw them take a neighbor's daughter. She hid behind a basket of figs and watched. She did not cry. She memorized the girl's face. She memorized the face of the giant who carried her away. That was the gift and the curse. The day her father did not come home, the rain had not yet started. It was a dry afternoon, hot and still. He had been summoned to the temple of Azazel, the highest of the Watchers, to translate something old, something the giants themselves could not read. He left at dawn. By the 3rd day, she stopped pretending he would come back. They found his body on the riverbank. His tongue had been cut out. That was the mark. That was what the Watchers did to anyone who read what they were not meant to read. Naamah did not weep at the burial, but that night, folding her father's burial robe, she felt something stiff inside the lining, a small scroll, rolled tight and tied with reed. He had hidden it there, knowing he might not come back. She unrolled it by lamplight. It was a name, long, strange, written in a script she had never seen but somehow understood, the way you understand a word in a dream. It was the true name of Azazel, the name that kept him alive, the name the Watchers breathed like air. And in the margin, in her father's small, careful hand, 4 words, read backward, "It kills." She sat very still for a long time. Then she stood up, walked to the cooking fire, and held the scroll over the flame. She did not burn it. She memorized it, letter by letter, forward, then backward, then both at once, until the shape of the name lived inside her skull and could not be taken out. By morning, she had a plan. She cut her hair short with a kitchen knife. She rubbed ash into her skin until her cheeks looked hollow. She put on the plainest dress she owned, and she walked to the temple of Azazel, and she offered herself as a kitchen servant. They barely looked at her. That was the point. A small, ash-streaked girl with tired eyes, useful for carrying water, useful for sweeping, useless for anything else. She was inside. For 3 months, she did nothing but watch. She learned the corridors. She learned which watchers slept and which never did. She learned the names of the priestesses, especially one called Lilitu, who walked the halls at night with eyes that did not blink. In the 4th month, she began to steal clay. Small handfuls, from the kitchen, from the courtyard. She wet it in her own water cup and shaped it into tablets no bigger than her palm, hidden in the folds of her dress. At night, in the storage room behind the kitchen, she pressed the true name into them with a sharpened reed. Backward, always backward. She buried the first one in a dry well at the edge of the temple grounds. She walked back through the dark with shaking hands, and she thought, 1. And then she thought, I need 69 more. She was not alone for long. There was a young man in the forge. His name was Lamech, a blacksmith's son, conscripted to make weapons for the giants, burned hands, and eyes that noticed things they should not notice. He noticed her. He noticed her hands were too clean for a kitchen girl. He noticed she counted her steps in the corridors. He noticed she came back from the courtyard with dirt under her fingernails that did not belong to any garden. One night, he stopped her in the hallway. What are you burying? She could have killed him then. There was a kitchen knife in her sleeve. She had practiced. Instead, she told him the truth. She did not know why. Maybe she was tired of carrying it alone. Maybe his eyes reminded her of her father. Maybe she just wanted, for one moment, to say the words out loud. He listened. He did not interrupt. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. Then, how many tablets do you need? 70. How many do you have? 12. He nodded. I can get you more clay from the forge. They will not miss it. If they catch you, they will cut out your tongue. Then I will not get caught. That was the night she stopped being alone. The months that followed were the longest of her life. Tablet 13, beneath the roots of an old cedar at the edge of the city. Tablet 20, inside a crack in the outer temple wall. Tablet 28, slipped into a forgotten tomb of a forgotten king, 3 days' walk from Enoch. Lamech carried that one himself on a fake errand for the forge. Tablet 35, sealed inside a jar of olive oil and lowered into a granary pit. Tablet 41, pressed into the mud beneath a goat pen. She kept count. Every night before sleep, she counted them in her head, the way other women counted prayers. But Lilitu had begun to notice things. A scribe's stylus missing from a locked room. A handful of clay vanished from the courtyard. A serving girl who walked too quietly past the hall of names. Lilitu started watching the kitchen. One evening, she pulled 3 servants into the priestess hall and questioned them. One of them, a girl called Taba, had once seen Naamah carrying something under her dress. Taba did not know what it was. Taba had not spoken of it, but Lilitu had ways of pulling words out of mouths that did not want to give them. Naamah heard the screams from the kitchen. She did not move. She kept stirring the lentils. Her hand did not shake. Taba was strangled in the courtyard at dawn, in front of all the servants as a warning. Naamah made herself watch. She memorized Teba's face the way she had memorized the face of the neighbor girl years before. That night, she buried tablet 47 in her own father's grave. She told herself she would carry Teba's name out of that temple, even if no one else ever knew it. She told herself many things that year. In the 5th year, Azazel called for her by name. Not her real name, the name she used in the temple, but still, he called for her to pour wine at a private ritual. She had been invisible for 53 months, and now the highest watcher in the city wanted her hands close to his cup. She walked into the chamber, and she did not look up. There were 7 watchers in the room. There was an altar of black basalt. There was a boy on the altar, her brother, her younger brother, whom she had not seen since the day their father died, whom she had assumed was dead, whom the watchers had been keeping for some night exactly like this one. He was 8 years old. She poured the wine. Her hand did not shake. She watched them, and she did not move, and she did not weep. And when it was over, she walked back to the kitchen, and she stirred the lentils, and she counted in her head, 48, 49, 50. Lamech found her in the storage room afterward. He did not ask. He just held her while she shook without making any sound at all. Then she went back to work. Tablet 51, beneath a baker's oven. Tablet 60, inside the hollow of a temple pillar. Tablet 68, in the riverbank mud where her father had been found. Tablet 69, beneath a paving stone in the great courtyard. One left. It was the 7th year. The skies had begun to change. There were stories in the marketplaces. A man named Noah building a vast wooden vessel in the desert. People laughed at him. The watchers laughed at him. Naamah did not laugh. She listened. The first rains came in the month of Tishri, light at first, then steady, then heavy. By the 2nd week, the streets of Enoch were flooded to the knee. She pressed the 70th tablet on the night the storm broke open the sky. She hid it under her pillow. She would carry it to its burial place at dawn. She did not get to dawn. Lilitu came in the dark. She tore the room apart. She found the tablet on the 2nd pass. She read the marks. She did not understand the language, but she understood enough. She dragged Naamah by the hair through 3 corridors and threw her down on the wet stone of the temple floor in front of Azazel. The water was already past her ankles. He looked down at her and he laughed. "You think words can kill me, child?" He held the tablet between his giant fingers. He turned it. He read aloud. He read it forward, the way it was meant to be read. He felt the small surge of power, and he smiled. He did not know it was written backward. The chamber door broke open. Lamech came through it with the heaviest hammer from the forge. He did not run at Azazel to kill him. He knew he could not. He ran at him to give Naamah 3 seconds. Azazel turned and struck him once. Lamech came apart. Naamah screamed. It was the first sound she had made in 7 years that was not measured. It was raw. It was an animal sound. It tore out of her throat, and as it tore, it carried with it the true name of Azazel. Every syllable, in perfect reverse order, in the language her father had hidden in the lining of his burial robe. She had only ever written it. She had not known she could speak it aloud. But she screamed it, and the sound rolled out of the temple and across the flooded city, and at the edges of Enoch, in dry wells, and beneath cedar roots, and inside forgotten tombs, and beneath bakers' ovens, 69 clay tablets began to vibrate, and then to crack, and then to shatter. From each one, the inverted name rose into the rain. The air itself changed. The watchers in the chamber clutched at their throats. Their skin went gray. Their bones turned to sand inside their bodies. Azael dropped the tablet. He reached for Naamah. His hand fell apart at the wrist before it touched her. He was screaming now. He was screaming her brother's scream. He was screaming Taba's scream. He was screaming the scream of every woman and child the giants had carried away. She whispered the last syllable. He collapsed on top of her in a slow rush of gray sand. Outside, in 12 cities, the Nephilim were falling, some in marketplaces, some in their beds, some mid-stride, crushing the ground beneath them as their bones gave out. The flood was rising fast now. Naamah crawled out from under what was left of Azael. Her throat was on fire. Something inside it had burned through. She tried to call Lamech's name, and no sound came out. She would never speak again. She crawled out of the temple. She crawled through the flooded streets. At the edge of the city, half buried in reeds, she found a small basket of woven rushes, sealed with pitch. Lamech had made it weeks ago. He had hidden it there for her, knowing this might come. She climbed inside. The water lifted her and carried her, and the world she had known went under behind her. She drifted for 40 days. When the waters receded, shepherds in a distant land found her on the bank of a new river, alive, mute, her hair gone white. They took her in. They asked her name. She wrote in the sand, Naamah. She lived another 60 years. She never spoke a word. She taught 3 girls to read, in caves, in secret, the way her father had taught her. She told them in writing the story of 70 tablets and a city of giants. She told them the true name was gone now, dispersed in the rain, never to be written again. The girls remembered. They told their daughters told theirs. But the scribes of the New World, when they wrote down the story of the flood, did not write her name. They wrote of Noah. They wrote of the ark. They wrote of the giants who had walked the earth in those days. They did not write of the silent woman. A woman bringing down giants was too much. It was heresy. It was impossible. It was easier to erase her than to explain her. In some old apocryphal scrolls, hidden away and almost forgotten, there is a single line. A woman called only the mute one of the stones, a servant in the temple of Azael. No name, no story. Just a shadow at the edge of a verse. That is all that is left of her. But the inverted name still hums beneath every word a woman writes without permission. And somewhere, beneath the roots of an old cedar, beneath the mud of a dry riverbed, beneath the bones of a forgotten king, the dust of 70 shattered tablets is still waiting. If you held your breath through her story, there is another woman whose name they tried to bury. A queen who walked into a king's bedchamber with poison in her sleeve and a kingdom on her back. Her story is next.